Welcome back to more Turning Pages. Today we are honored to be sitting down with an author from Elora, Michael Hale. Welcome to Turning Pages.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Michael is the author of A Fold in the Tent of the Sky and The Spiral Variations. Can you tell us a bit about either one?
Well, A Fold in the Tent of the Sky is basically about a bunch of psychics who are recruited by a corporation called Calliope Associates. And they're trained to do remote viewing, which is sort of out-of-body experiences that are capable of sussing out information all over the world the way a spy agency would, but on a psychic level. And the problems start happening when some of the recruits, gifted sensitives and psychics, start being able to manifest themselves physically in the past as well as just view the past. Mm-hmm. And that causes all kinds of problems for the timeline of our world, if you know anything about theories about time-space continuum and subatomic physics. It's verboten to actually interfere with the past, and because it disrupts history from that point on into our present world.
Because I know there have been other fictional books written about time travel or people who can time travel, and they run into themselves and things like that, which does seem like it seems a bit hard to get your mind around.
It is hard to get your mind around because, of course, if it was happening in our real world, we wouldn't know about it because we wouldn't remember. If someone went back from the present to kill Abraham Lincoln, it's part of our history.
Right.
We don't know if it happened today or next week or 4 years from now. The fact that everyone's memory of the event would be changed immediately upon the event happening, it would change history and we wouldn't be aware of it. But one of the characters in the book, Peter Abbott, who is a former actor and a psychic, because he's so good at memorizing lines, that's the excuse I use in the book.
Very good.
He's able to remember all these changes that happened.
Right.
So every time his nemesis, Simon Haywood, another psychic in the group, goes back and preemptively kills off people by disrupting their conception, he interferes with the conception of people rather than kill them. Simon is discovered doing this by Peter Abbott, the protagonist, because he remembers all the different versions of history for each of those changes in the past, till the point where it gets relatively overwhelming for him, and he can't really judge reality from the multiple versions of his memory. So it's very challenging book to work out in the end, but it all comes together in the end in a final scene. So. Well,
and I love that idea of going back to get rid of somebody at the moment of conception rather than just going back to murder them.
Sort of the perfect crime.
Yes, exactly. Well, he never existed.
No, and there's no evidence. Unless an embarrassing situation for the people involved. So, and there's multiple instances of that in the book if you want to read about it in detail. So.
And how about the spiral variations?
Spiral variations is another subatomic theory known as the multiple worlds theory. Hugh Everett in 1973 proposed this. He's a physicist. Because of the nature of subatomic physics, the mathematics shows that at each interaction of subatomic particles, in fact, a new universe is created. So and instead of just seeing it as a mathematical reality, he extrapolated from that and proposed that this is the way the real world works, that at every moment a new universe is created as each universe takes a different path through history. So the premise of the book is that there are holes ripped in our own universe so that we can interact with other universes, parallel universes. And the protagonist, Eric Lancaster, who's a beekeeper who keeps bees in the middle of a cyclotron, which is because his great aunt left the land to the Department of Energy in the US so they could create a huge particle accelerator on the land, which is much like the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland that we've heard so much about lately, about searching for the Higgs boson particle. He has his bees. One of his bee yards is right in the middle of the circle created for the cyclotron, because his great aunt technically still owns it. She leased it for $1 a year.
Right.
So he discovers one day that something has disrupted his bee yard, and he discovers a beehive that looks alien and strange on a patch of disrupted ground that contains blue honey, and he doesn't know where this comes from.
Right.
And as these events, as they're called, recur, Eric gets caught up in one of these events and gets transported to a parallel universe, and then to another parallel universe. And some of the characters in all these different worlds start getting transported to other parallel universes. So it's a long, convoluted plot, but again, it all comes together in the end, I hope, for all you readers out there. It's a satisfying ending.
As you're writing it, do you have it mapped out, or I mean, how do you keep track of
it? It's interesting. It all starts with an initial idea, an initial thought, or a premise, or what if. I think the most primal question we ask ourselves is, what if we could go back and make things different?
Right.
And in both these books, the main characters get to go back in some way and change the past of their own lives as well as other people's lives. Or at least for Eric Lancaster, he gets to see or visit a parallel universe where his own life would have been slightly different. There's a crucial event in his life that deep down inside he discovers he wishes never happened in his childhood. And he gets to choose a world where that thing never happened, or where it did happen and he is the person he is today. And I think that's the kind of archetypal kind of questions we all ask about our own lives. Not every day, I hope, but sometimes in our lives we sort of yearn to go back to a time or a place where we could have maybe said a different word, or stepped over here, or stepped over there.
Taken this path.
What the consequences of our lives would have been. So that's basically the, getting back to your question, that's the kernel root of what provoked me to write these books. Because I did have an event in my life that provoked that kind of questioning. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was when I was 9 years old when my sister died.
Oh, right.
She was 3 years old and she died very quickly between Christmas and New Year's.
Oh, dear.
And it's one of those damaging events in people's lives that makes you introverted and sensitive to these kinds of questions, I think.
Right.
So,
yeah, and does make you wonder if something had happened differently.
So that's why and it's interesting that I didn't discover that this was what the books were all about. Again, how do you write the book? Till they were all finished. And I realized this book is about the loss of my sister. And the next book was really about the loss of my little sister.
Right.
So that's why we write, I guess. That's why we have the privilege of being able to write about this stuff.
To work through
when
things.
most people don't. They're caught up in their day-to-day existence. And
but some people might argue that that's why reading fiction is so great, because you sometimes get to work through things with the author.
A cathartic thing. You can work through your own questions through the characters in a book. And that's hopefully what we as authors provide for the reading public, is that luxury of being able to work it through
that's right.
on the back of some author.
On the back of your work.
That's right.
And so as a bookstore owner, I always just wonder, where would I put this book in my store? Would you call them suspense, thrillers, science fiction?
Well, my publisher for A Fold in the Tent of the Sky called it a sophisticated thriller, because it It was about serial killers. But I think it straddles many genres. I think it could be a science fiction book. It was nominated for the Aurora Prize, pre-Aurora,
Right.
when it came out. So that was a science fiction focused. And at the same time, Indigo Books in Toronto made an Indigo pick because it was considered a mystery thriller.
Okay.
So it's hard to pigeonhole
Yes,
it.
it is.
So, and the same with the Spiral Variations. I think it could be considered science fiction, but at the same time, there's again an antagonist who is a double of the lead character from another world who's really messed up and is doing horrible things. And so his adventures could be classed as detective fiction, because police procedural elements and mystery elements and thriller elements into it. So,
Which is nice, because then it can be a gateway. If somebody who loves detective fiction picks it up, it's kind of a gateway into
Sure.
science fiction. If somebody
vice
science fiction
versa.
picks
That's
it up,
great.
it's
That's a good way of marketing.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Michael,
You're
for joining
welcome.
us.
It's a pleasure. It's been a wonderful day here at the
Yes.
Writers Festival.
It has been.
Perfect weather
it
and
has
wonderful readers to read with, great people and a wonderful audience and a fantastic bookseller on
Aw.
hand. And
Thank you.
An MC that cannot be matched.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back with more Turning Pages.